it was really grief that broke me open, but I didn't know it at first. It took a bit for it to set in, to realize that I was grieving. And when one grieves, there's nowhere to put it. Like there's nowhere to store it in the body. It has to be released. It has to be let go of. And it was that process of recognizing that I was grieving and letting go of the grief. That was the crucible moment for me. That was the turning point that set me on this course. And I never looked back. So what was happening was a really close friend of mine was in transition, and my wife and I took care of him, and we took care of him until he passed. And it was after he passed that I realized the extent to which I was grieving, but it was more than just the loss of my friend. That was part of it. That was what cracked me open. The real grief was feeling the missing, the loss, or what seemed like the loss of connection to the spirit within me, for lack of a better way to say it. The spirit within me. I wanted a direct connection with that. And in that was, I wanted to know, who am I and why am I here? Like, why did you send me to this place? And for what purpose? And who are you? I really wanted to know, and I wanted to know it with such a driving, burning passion that it literally drove me into the woods. I started going to the woods, and I would come here before there was a here. I would just go into the woods and kneel and lay out. I'd make what I simply called an altar, and I'd have my journal, and I would do this before the sun rose in the morning, and I'd just simply wait for the sun to rise in the cold, and have my journal open. And I was simply in the quiet, in silence. And I would journal from that place. And that was the process that began to connect me more deeply, being in nature, as close to the ground as I could get, that I started to have a sense of something greater within me that was reaching to me just as I was reaching for it. It led me to making more formal circles on the ground where I could come to again and again. I'd just simply delineate a circle on the ground. I'd lay out some stones. First it was just laying out a circle for a fire, and I'd make a fire, and then it got a little more formal. I'd make a bigger circle inside of which I could come and just sit quietly and, have a place to sit or a place to kneel. And I would do this. I'd come out early in the morning before sunrise. I would just wake up, and I could feel an internal prompt, time to get up, go to the fire. I'd go out in the evening at sunset. It was these transitional time of days when the veil felt the thinnest, the transitional time between sunrise, the dark of before dawn and sunrise, and in the evening before the sunset. And then I started to stay out all night, and I would sleep on the ground close to the fire and not break the spell, not break the continuity of having come out, been close to the fire on the earth, and then stay out all evening, all night, and go home in the morning. It seemed to be, as I look back at that time, it was something of an initiation. It was something of a deep calling, a deep sense of wanting to be grounded to the earth, connected to the sky, if you will, feeling the warmth of the fire on my face and the cold at my back. And I did this all through the winter. I'd come out and stay out in the wintertime. And it was an initiation of sorts. And it's not lost on me that it's analogous to when holy men and seers and shamans and Jesus himself would go to the woods, go to the desert, go out into nature and be quiet and listen for that still small voice. It's available to all of us. I'm not unique in that respect. I just did it. I just followed that inner guidance and submitted myself. I surrendered to it to the best of my ability, and not without a lot of resistance, which I also see in the folks that I work with. There's resistance. There's an unwillingness to relinquish control, and I was relinquishing control. I was, there were a lot of tears. I shattered my ego over and over again. It seemed like breaking it on the rock to open myself to something greater, to an internal voice and an inner sense of guidance that was beyond my ego, and oftentimes in direct opposition to my ego, and I had a lot of trouble with that. But over the years, and it's been years now, I've learned to surrender, and I've learned to trust. And the truth is, I've never been guided wrongly. I've never been misguided. And so I've come to know that about the voice within me, the voice within you, the voice that's within all of us, does not misguide us. It's actually leading us to what's right for us, what's in our highest interest, in our highest and best interest, for the greatest good, not just for ourselves, but for our families and our community. Looking back, what I think was happening for me was I was in the midst of my own awakening. I know that sounds really esoteric and abstract, but it's probably the best way to describe it. In our culture, we call it a midlife crisis. I never called it that. It was something much more profound. I wasn't, I didn't go off on a bender. I didn't go out and buy expensive cars or, take off to Vegas and go gambling or anything like that, or just, go off the rails. I went deeply internal. And I still had, a wife and children and a practice and a community that I lived within. And so my life didn't go away, but I went internal. And there was a time when I felt like I walked away from everything. I walked away from men's work. I withdrew from the community. I was more introspective, more introverted. But it was about tending to my own process and recognizing I was going through something really profound, and I wanted to be present to it. And that's what I invite others to be present to for themselves, is their own internal process of what's shifting, what's changing, what wants to come through them. And that's what was happening for me. Something was coming through me, and I wanted to be present to what that was. And on the other side of that, where I am today is in a much, much more grounded, connected, mature place. I'm an elder now, and I accept the mantle of elderhood not as an age-related phenomenon, but as something that I recognize I've entered into the elder years of my life, and to embrace that as a seasoned man in the mature masculine way, so that I can now, and this is what I do, give back and mentor others and bring others into the fold and help others who are seriously seeking, seriously inquiring into the meaning of their own life, and to help them find it, to help them remember who they are, just as it occurred for me. So I hope that's helpful to you. Thank you for joining me here at the fire. Stay close to the fire yourself, and I'll see you next time. Adios.